What's up, Hoopers? Happy Wednesday and welcome to Triple Threat. I know it's looking a little different. We're throwing a lot of different locations at you, but that is because we are working very, very hard on our studio, and hopefully you get a sneak peek of it before we wrap up for the season. But we got a few more shows before we get to that point, so we're not even going to talk about it. Look, we are just one game away from potentially crowning a champion, a new champion. Once again, a different champion. It will make 8 different champions in 8 seasons of the NBA. But before we get to that point, you know I like to tweet during games, and you know I'm very active on social media, and one of my tweets is causing an uproar. What else is new? It's always giving people something to talk about. Game 3 of the NBA Finals, Reggie Miller, one of the greatest Pacers of all time, probably the greatest Indiana Pacer of all time, and one of the greatest basketball players we have ever seen, wore a very questionable fit during Game 3 of the NBA Finals. It was a jersey kind of tucked in to his pants. There was a belt situation. Here it is. The caption says, Reggie Miller ain't got a mirror in his house. But look, I guess when you're of a certain age, you kind of wear whatever you want to wear. This is a very dad fit, I feel like, but it wasn't the fit I was even acknowledging in my tweet. I mean, I did laugh at it. It was funny, whatever. No harm, no foul. Different strokes for different folks, if you will. But it was this tweet of mine that kind of caused an uproar where I said, look, Reggie Miller, who is now a member of the media, is wearing a full-blown Pacers jersey. So I never want to hear anybody cry or complain about me being a Knicks fan and being vocal about my fandom and being in the media. There were a lot of responses. This tweet did like 4 million impressions on Twitter, but one response in particular came from a guy by the name of Draymond Green and said, it's something not right about this statement. I'm trying to figure it out. That was on June 13th. He still hasn't figured it out because I told him when he did to let me know. He hasn't let me know. But look, I want to make something very, very clear to everybody. In no way, shape, or form was I comparing myself to Reggie Miller. I am only a legendary Knicks player, a Hall of Famer, if you will, in my mind. I understand that when it comes to basketball, Reggie Miller is here and I am here. I'll say I'm like about here. But that's not what I was saying. What I was simply saying was this. When it comes to the media, you can be a fan and do your job, and to do your job fairly. You can have an allegiance and do your job fairly. I happen to think that media members who are vocal about their fandom makes the media more interesting. We're not robots, we're people. We have fandom, we have emotions, we have players that we're big fans of. We should be able to vocalize those things as long as you're keeping your criticism, your analysis fair. And everybody knows that I am the first person to critique the New York Knicks if they are not doing well. I literally got on this very set and our bigger set and our smaller set and called out Tom Thibodeau, who is no longer the head coach of the New York Knicks. I did not have any part in that, by the way. I just want to make that very clear. So my only point was Reggie Miller, legendary basketball player, Hall of Famer, Indiana Pacer, and is wearing a Pacers jersey as a now member of the media. That doesn't mean he can't do his job fairly, and it doesn't mean that I can't do mine. Look, after the break, we are going to have a jam-packed show. We have Brad Botkin joining me in the studio, and coming remote is Chris Walker. I like to call us the Big Three, the Dangerous Three, whatever you want to refer to us as. We are coming up right after this. Welcome back, everybody, to Triple Threat. Ashley Nicole Moss, Brad Botkin, Chris Walker. I told you the Big Three was coming, and we are here now. Guys, we're in the midst of the NBA playoffs. Well, we're one game away from the NBA champion being crowned. I think we all know who it's going to be at this point, but anything could happen in this series. Chris, don't give me that look. It's true. But a conversation has kind of ensued on NBA Twitter, if you will, about the crowning and the decrowning, or the throning and the dethroning of NBA superstars. And Tyrese Halliburton, as we know, is going to undergo a MRI to ultimately determine if he could even play in Game 6 with that calf injury he sustained in the first quarter of Game 5. But it was his playoff performance as a whole that kind of dubbed him by some media members a superstar. And that just invoked an entirely new conversation about whether or not Tyrese Halliburton was throned, or crowned, I should say, a superstar too early. Now, recently this tweet went viral on social media about the current superstars in the NBA. And let's take a look at this list here. We have Nikola Jokic, Giannis, SGA, Luka, Jason Tatum, Wemby, Anthony Davis, Donovan Mitchell, Anthony Edwards, Jalen Brunson, Tyrese Halliburton, Steph Curry, no LeBron James, which is kind of interesting. I think they might have forgot that one.
Yeah,
that might be a slip. But first, let's react to this particular list. Anybody on this list, Chris, I'll start with you, that you think is on here and should not be?
Ooh, superstar? If we're saying superstar.
Yeah.
I mean, we've heard Magic Johnson's words about what a superstar is. The question is, and Brad, I'm going to deflect, unfortunately. I'm going to throw this at you.
Ooh.
Would you pay to go see Tyrese Halliburton? Because that's what Magic said. Magic said it's someone who drives the numbers. In Hollywood, right, they're talking about being first on the sheet, on the call sheet. The question is, do people pay to come see the lead actor or actress, right, whether it's at home or abroad? So looking at that list, am I paying to see Anthony Davis play, if he plays? Am I paying to see Tyrese Halliburton play? LeBron is clearly left off that list. I'm saying, wow. And you know what? On the backdrop of what's going on in the NBA finals, I hate to answer this question given Tyrese Halliburton's performance, particularly last game. But I'm going to say, and I hate to say this, I can't say Tyrese Halliburton's a superstar, even though he's third NBA, All-NBA third team. I can't say he's a superstar.
I'm not mad at that, actually. But I'm interested to see what Brad says. I'm not mad at that take.
No, he's right. I mean, again, these are very subjective conversations. If we're going to talk about like a superstar basketball player, yes, Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar basketball player. He's got the 66-1 Pacers in the finals.
You just mean in terms of athleticism?
No, yeah, just a player.
Like okay.
Just a player. But he's right. Superstars are beyond players. There's a difference between the people who are up for Best Actor and movie stars. You know, like George Clooney is a movie star.
It's crazy because I literally had this conversation with my parents a few days ago.
It's the same thing.
Is Timothée Chalamet a movie star or an actor to you?
Well, he seems like an actor to me. He seems artsy. He seems like but he's becoming he's with the Jenner. So I mean, like that factors in.
I know you have a daughter.
That factors into the whole thing. So I think superstar goes beyond. And there are some players who aren't as good as, like, say, a Nikola Jokic, but they're more of a superstar. Anthony Edwards is not as good as Nikola Jokic, but he's more of a superstar. To Chris's point, exactly. So, can you build a marketing campaign around a player? Are you selling out road arenas? There's a big difference between a movie star and a great actor, and I think that Chris is absolutely right. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton is a superstar in that sense. He's a superstar basketball player, but if you don't qualify it with basketball, he's not a superstar.
So, Chris, in that vacuum, then, when Brad said you can kind of separate the two, for example, Anthony Edwards has more superstar qualities in terms of personality, his charisma, than, say, a Nikola Jokic. Nikola Jokic is a superstar because of his talent
and the way he plays.
Because
it's game style matters too.
But Nikola Jokic is a superstar because he has won and he's a multiple-time MVP and he's just a freak of nature. So, if you make it in that kind of a conversation, does that then change your opinion on Tyrese Halliburton and his superstar status?
Listen, another way that you determine who's a superstar, right? And I don't know if we can pull that list up again, but was Kevin Durant on that list?
Kevin Durant was not on that list. We can definitely pull the list up again. I was surprised Donovan Mitchell was.
Luka's on there.
I don't know who put that list together. Cam 502 at Cavs. You need to stop putting lists together, and we need to reference this person because you don't have LeBron or KD on that list. That's insane. So my thing is, Tyrese Halliburton has his own shoe. Think about guys that have their own shoe. That's what basketball culture is. Guys that have a shoe that people think they can dream. Puma thinks they can drive the market by having Tyrese Halliburton. On the steam of the Olympics, he didn't play much, right? Last year they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. good-looking guy, certainly marketable in Indiana, a small market. Whatever those decisions are that make those people give him his own shoe. And again, he followed it up by being third-team All-NBA. And unfortunately, they call him the moment. But in this moment right now, and that's what we're built, Brad, that's what we've been held captive.
Who calls him the moment?
Yeah, that's
this
going
moment
around
right now.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. It's hard. It's really hard.
It is.
Who dubbed him that's like the same person? Is that the same person who dubbed Jason Tatum the anomaly?
Well, it's just
who's picking these nicknames?
It's in the vein of he doesn't show up every game, but when he shows up, it's a moment. He's hitting game winners. Listen, I think
random nicknames.
I think we're all like pretty much in agreement here. But I think there certainly are exceptions of guys that you wouldn't market the NBA around. Like Tim Duncan is a superstar, no question. But he's not a superstar in the sense of like that Brad Pitt, a leading actor that's the whole marketing campaign. Mm-hmm. And so I think if you're not the marketing campaign guy, then your bar for it just being a basketball conversation is really high. It's MVP, like Nikola Jokic. I don't think Tyrese Halliburton is not a marketing campaign guy. He's maybe a low-level one. He's like Klay Thompson's got his own shoe, too. You know, he's not a superstar. So, like, the bar becomes much higher if you're not the box office Steph Curry, Anthony Edwards, LeBron James. The bar becomes much higher if it's just basketball. I don't think Tyrese quite makes that. So Nikola Jokic, he makes it.
Okay,
Brad,
so then go ahead, Chris.
Ash, can I say this real quick? If Tyrese Halliburton, if they won Game 3 and they were on the cusp of going back home to win this series, and he's been playing a little bit better, would this conversation be different? That's the question.
Not for me, because I know how good Tyrese Halliburton is. I don't need him to do something more.
But I do think that winning changes the perception, because think about it. Yes. Tyrese Halliburton has kind of been crowned a superstar, whether you want to say too early or too late, whatever, based on his performance specifically in this postseason. The clutch games, the choking at Madison Square Garden, winning, showing up the moment, if you will. So that is kind of what has driven this superstar conversation around Tyrese Halliburton. So to Chris's point, if the Pacers were in a different situation and Tyrese Halliburton was a big part of the reason why they were in a different situation, does that then change the narrative about whether or not he's a superstar? Because now the question about his superstar status only came into question because why? He had 4 points in Game 5, injured or not.
No, it's coming into because it's goes both ways. It's in question that he even is because of how well the Pacers have played the series and the moments that he has had.
But if the Pacers had won Game 5, are we having this conversation right now?
Yeah, I just don't think Tyrese Halliburton, if we're honest, our instincts don't say superstar. To me, it's not always about basketball. LaMelo Ball is a bigger superstar than Tyrese Halliburton. He's not as good a player. He doesn't mean as much to winning. But that, to me, and again, I started this with this is subjective. And Chris even started with questioning. He said, I don't know if Tyrese Halliburton, so he was questioning it. Now he's saying that maybe he is because of how he plays. I think we all kind of don't feel 100% comfortable calling him a superstar. Again, I'm drawing the line between the guys who are true blue. I don't have to question. Brad Pitt movie star. I don't have to question. That's Steph, that's LeBron, that's KD. And if you're not the marketing campaign, the bar for it just being a basketball conversation is at Nikola Jokic. And Tyrese Halliburton's not that. He just falls short.
Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
Can I just say one thing? Jaylen Brown is not on the list. Is he not a superstar?
Oh, no. He's not even the best player on his own team.
Is Jason Tatum a superstar?
I believe that he is.
There's a but here. Hold on.
No, I believe that he is. Yeah, I believe that he is. You guys have made your case for Jason Tatum, but I think it's a borderline call.
It's a borderline call.
I do. I think it's a borderline call because I put a lot of weight. Honestly, I don't think that Jason Tatum's selling out road arenas. I think the Celtics. I don't. I think the Celtics do. I think the Celtics do. I don't think that he's selling out road arenas.
Jason Tatum, from a sneaker standpoint alone, has the best-selling bags. Kids love.
You're probably right, but I'm saying
his marketability is through the roof.
No. Steph's marketing ability is through the roof.
So is Jason Tatum.
No, Steph.
Oh, come on.
No, Steph. Listen, he crosses the bar, but not. He ain't a super. He's not a no doubt He's not a Clooney.
I promise you, I am telling you, when you talk about marketability, you have to put Steph and Jason Tatum along.
Oh, get out of here. Steph and Jason. Chris, help me out. Steph and Jason Tatum.
Well, listen.
Steph's like Harry Potter big.
Jason Tatum will be in the Hall of Fame. Jason Tatum will be in the Hall of Fame. But I'm going to be honest, I'm a big movie buff. I don't know the last time I saw a Clooney or Brad Pitt movie that was a blockbuster. Even though they are superstars like a LeBron or KD, at the end of the day, if you're talking about blockbuster, I'm not paying to see Brad. Now, the F1 movie I'm looking to go see.
Yeah, see, I was just going to say, that looks good.
The F1 movie I'm looking to go see.
That looks good.
But at the end of the day, you know, finding Benjamin Buttons and all of that other stuff and Interview with the Vampire, missed me on that.
I saw Wolves on the plane, and that was Clooney and Brad Pitt, and it was not a good movie.
I saw that on my feed last night.
It was not a good movie.
I've heard that.
So, but to wrap.
Hey, but Brad Pitt is a movie star. He could be making the worst movies on earth. He's a superstar.
To wrap this conversation up, though, Chris, I'll give you first word on this. Are we too quick to kind of throne and dethrone superstars in the NBA?
I mean, you know what it is? It's a moment-by-moment situation. It's how we look at the world today, you know, online. You know, who's a superstar, who's not, is based on how they perform. And if you got to add having a sneaker, you got to add, do people come see them play? You got to add, when the moment's the brightest, how they perform. And a lot of it, when you look at Anthony Edwards, he hasn't done more than Tyrese Halliburton, but yet we look at him differently, maybe because he's a high flyer, maybe because of culture. It could be whatever reason it is. I respect Tyrese Halliburton and the game that he has, and I love pass for first point guards. He plays the right way. But that element of being soft hovers over his head, and the way people look at him, the same way they look at Jason Tatum, I believe is a bit unfair. I get it. And if people know what I'm talking about, not on the screen, understand exactly where I'm coming from. But at the end of the day, fair or unfair, the only way to eradicate that is to ball out. That's the only way to end that. So, yes, it's thrown out there far too quickly, but at the end of the day, you know, it is what it is. Don't throw a bake sale, as my boy John Rothstein says, for Tyrese Halliburton. He got his own shoe. He's living a lap of luxury. Best players in the NBA, so he's good.
All right. Well, look, when we come back, we're going to unpack everything that is the Kevin Durant trade market or lack thereof. Don't move. Oh, man, if we had cameras rolling during that commercial break, it would have been so good. The conversation did not stop. I wish we had more time, but we got to move on. It got very heated for a second, but in the best way possible. But we're going to talk about Kevin Durant right now because in the midst of the NBA Finals, Kevin Durant has controlled a lot of the NBA discourse as sources continue to fly and everyone seems to have the inside track as to where the two-time world champion will end up. So let's dive into some of these reports, okay? So per Shams, the Rockets and the Heat are a more realistic landing spots for Kevin Durant than the San Antonio Spurs at the moment. Per Kevin O'Connor, Kevin Durant reportedly had interest in, this is the initial tweet right here from Shams. This is per Kevin O'Connor. Kevin Durant reportedly had interest in joining the Celtics at the trade deadline and was denied. Per The Athletic, the Suns are still hopeful that Kevin Durant might, quote, warm up to the possibility of being traded to the Timberwolves, despite the fact that it has reported that Kevin Durant, quote, has no interest in playing in Minnesota. However, all of these reports and all of these inside tracks have yet to answer the biggest question that there is, or even really acknowledge it. And that is, despite the legendary career of Kevin Durant, who is still one of the best in the league, despite being left off that superstar list that we just dissected in the last segment.
Blasphemy.
Is he worth the asking price? Well, this report came out of AZ Central, and this said that the Phoenix Suns reportedly have, quote, no leverage in Kevin Durant trade talks, and they may have to reduce their high asking price, saying, quote, the Phoenix Suns may be placing too high a value on Kevin Durant and might have to reduce their asking price in negotiating a trade. league sources inform the Arizona Republic the Suns have, quote, no leverage, in part because of Durant's age and because he wants to start fresh elsewhere, league sources say. The idea of Durant returning to a team that entertained deals for him before the 2025 trade deadline isn't a pleasant one. A lot to unpack here. Obviously, a lot of reports about where KD could end up, where is he going, why he wants to go there. But Brad, that was probably the biggest bombshell I feel like we have read, and that is maybe the market isn't as high as we once thought it would be.
It's not going to be. It's not going to be as high because of his age, and so.
So strictly because of his age, not because of his productivity.
Of course. So we can't look at like the Desmond Bane, for instance. Everybody was talking about, well, if Desmond Bane's worth 4 picks, KD's better than Desmond Bane, but the age situation it's an entirely different conversation. So he's not going to get what Phoenix is hoping. Everybody knows that Phoenix wants to and really has to trade him, so their leverage is down. What's strange to me is Kevin Durant saying he doesn't want to revisit these teams that showed interest in him at the 25 deadline. Why? Like, they wanted him then. If they want him now, I don't really understand. The Suns are doing right by saying we're going to make the best deal for us. They should do that. The problem is Kevin Durant's on an expiring deal, so the team has to know that he wants to be there in order for them to give them, the Suns, what the Suns want, and that speaks to Minnesota. If Minnesota is going to pony up and give a real package that's going to get Phoenix attracted, then they got to know that he wants to be there. So that's where Kevin Durant holds the leverage. If he just says, look, I'll go play an unhappy year for you, and then I'm gone, I don't want to be here, then they're not going to trade much for him. So we have to start entertaining the idea of Kevin Durant actually not getting traded at all, where Phoenix just says, look, these offers are just not where it's at. We think that we could actually still be, despite how we finished the last 2 seasons, we can still run back next year with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and a roster that we can at least convince ourselves that we can compete with some marginal changes. I think we have to start talking about that as a possibility. It seemed like a foregone conclusion that he would be traded, but if they are just going to get peanuts, then he might stay.
Chris, I want to get your feedback on that because, as we know, it's kind of this unspoken rule in the NBA, unless you're Damian Lillard in the Portland Trail Blazers, that when a superstar says, I want to be traded and this is my list, you do your best to adhere to that. But to Brad's point, if the Suns aren't going to get what is worth of a Kevin Durant type caliber player, then you do have a situation where they can say, yeah, we're not trading you, but then you also have a situation where you have a disgruntled Kevin Durant. Now, I don't think he's the type of player to sit out. I think he loves the game of basketball. He speaks very highly of it. He's dedicated to his craft. But it wouldn't be good for the locker room vibes to have a player in the locker room who does not want to be there.
You know, Kevin Durant is a very interesting player. It's hard to criticize him because he's just one of the all-time greats, and he is a 2-time MVP. You can say he chases a ring similar to LeBron, even though LeBron gets more of the angst when it comes to that. But you look at Kevin Durant since he left Golden State and track his career. Like, all that stuff is great, but let's track it since leaving Golden State and when in Brooklyn. And then look at what happened in Phoenix right now. And at his age and his injuries. That's the one thing we're leaving out. So the question is, with the backdrop of what's going on in the NBA right now, you got a team that's 24 years old, that's their average age, on the cusp of winning the championship. The team they're playing against, their average age is 26. And who are the stars? I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, but he doesn't have the allure of these other guys as being an all-time great, even though he's having an all-time great year. I think these GMs maybe look at this stuff differently. I'm the Spurs. I got Wemby. I got De'Aaron Fox. I'm like, do I really want to bring Kevin Durant into this locker room? I'm the Rockets. Ime Udoka, starch disciplinarian, defensive guy. They all want to win. But, hey, look what their record was this year. So when you bring in Kevin Durant, you bring more than just those accolades you put on the screen. You bring a whole lot of stuff with it as well, dare not say drama. So you start factoring in the contracts. I'm looking at the New York Knicks, and you're saying, like, okay, they gave up a bunch of picks to get Mikal Bridges. They almost made it to the finals. You're looking at Desmond Bane and what happened with the Orlando Magic. They're saying, hey, man, it is now or never. If a team is not now or never with Kevin Durant, do you really want to give up the farm to get him based on the current? tenor
No.
of the NBA is right now is winning with youth. And that's the last thing I'll say, guys. And I love LeBron. I think he's the greatest ever. We can shake heads about that. I think Kevin Durant's one of the greatest ever. But I believe that the reason why a lot of these guys can have the duration in their careers that they have, because they're playing against children. You look at the NBA draft, it's all lottery guys. If they're giving up 4 first-round picks, what does that say about the NBA if a team is willing to give up 4 first-round picks for Desmond Bane and 5 first-round picks for Mikal Bridges? What does that say about the state of the league? That's just being honest.
That's a whole other conversation.
It really is. It really is.
No,
So you think that the competition isn't stiff enough for, if it was stiffer, if it was grown men, more of them, that they wouldn't last as long?
They would not last as long. I don't believe
I don't
they'd
want to
last
say
as
that the
long.
players in the league aren't grown men. These aren't 17-year-old kids. They're in their middle 20s, mid-20s, early 20s, late 20s. These are grown people with responsibilities, families, children. I don't want to go. I don't want to say that.
They're not going to war. Okay, I'm going to tell you why. I saw an advertisement or advertisement for the NBA draft. They had Dylan Harper, they had Ace Bailey, and
those are
obviously
kids, yes.
Black. Well, okay, well, that's what they put in the league. Stephon Castle, all those guys last year. Reed Shepherd, they're one-and-done guys. I'm like, these guys have won nothing, and they're going to be in the league with Kevin Durant. That's why Kevin Durant can still do what he does, and LeBron can still be second-team All-NBA at 40-something years old.
But I think we also have to attribute that to the dedication. I mean, LeBron spends $1 million on his body a season. This is a guy who is dedicated to his craft. The same thing with Kevin Durant. I don't want to say that a lot of their longevity is based on the competition that they've played against, because there are guys who they have played against who are Hall of Famers who are no longer in the league. They have withstood the test of time because of, one, how they take care of their body, the type of game that they play. I don't want to say that it's based on, they're going against guys who are much lower than them.
I gotta disagree. I gotta disagree with Chris there. It's not the majority. It's the young guys. The young guys in the league that he's talking about are not the majority of the players. So, the bottom line is, if we want to get into this, Jordan was playing in the finals getting guarded by Jeff Hornacek and, Dan Marley, and, these are not all-time great players. So, he's getting Danny Ainge is D'ing him up, so he's not dealing with Kawhi Leonard.
There's tiers.
Kawhi Leonard.
So you're saying Jeff Hornacek? Are you saying Jeff Hornacek and Dan Marley couldn't play at today's NBA right now?
I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if we're going to talk about the physicality of the game, and if you're having to go, I'll look at a guy like Jalen Williams right now, who's a 6'8" truck. Kawhi Leonard defending you every possession. These are guys if LeBron has Jeff Hornacek guarding him in an NBA Finals, he's going to get 40.
Yeah,
it's a different.
We're talking about a LeBron James who has played against everybody from Kobe to Jokic to Kawhi in his prime. I mean, the list goes on and on. It's not like he's been playing scrubs.
I don't want the argument that moved in a different direction. The only reason why I'm saying this, I'm making it relatable to Kevin Durant and why they're willing to give up 5 first-round picks for players. I'm like, why? Because they don't value the youth of these players. Look at the NBA draft right now, right? And look at the guys in the last 5 years that are still playing that are significant guys. Reed Shepherd was the 3rd pick in the draft and couldn't get off the bench for the Rockets.
Right, but Chris is right about this. They're not giving up the picks, and that's why, to circle all this back, that's why Kevin Durant is not going to attract what people think he's not worth it. I don't know that it's because of this, what we're talking about here. I don't know if that's the reason, but they're not going to offer what they. I think it shows that they do value those picks. You're not going to go to a 38-year-old guy. Now, you might do it for Desmond Bane, and in a vacuum, Desmond Bane's not the player that Kevin Durant is, but with Desmond Bane, you've got a runway of time. Teams actually do value picks more than ever now because of the second apron. It's cheap labor, and it's assets for the future. It's flexibility. These teams that get locked in to top-heavy, top-talent guys like the Suns end up with no off-ramp. They have nowhere to go. They have no leverage in negotiations. These are scare tactics. These are things you look at and say, I don't want to end up like that. So you're going to see, actually, that teams do value these picks, and that's why the Suns are not going to get what they want to get for Kevin Durant.
Well, when we talk about Kevin Durant and LeBron James, we can't not talk about rings and ring culture. When we come back, we are going to dissect whether or not this is helping or hurting the game of basketball.
Allen Iverson and Charles Barkley and Steve Nash, like, oh, they can't be talked about or discussed with these guys just because this guy won 1 ring or won 2 rings or won, like, it's just weird to me. It's like,
that was LeBron James on his Mind of the Game podcast with Steve Nash, voicing his disdain for the ring culture of the NBA and how much it controls the narrative around the league and the players in the league. So it got everybody talking a little bit because, as we know, LeBron James has put himself in favorable situations to win multiple rings. Not to say he did not have a substantial part in winning those rings, but we all know there were favorable situations that he selected that gave him the best opportunity to win those rings, i.e. the Miami Heat, the Big Three. So it had a lot of people saying, well, would you be saying this if you did not have the amount of rings that you did? And if ring culture didn't matter, then why have you moved from team to team to give yourself the best opportunity to win? And some people are also saying, when having these conversations, like, it sounds good on paper, sounds good in theory, but when we talk about competitive sports, there are winners and there are losers. And it doesn't change the fact that you're a great all-time player, but we do put winners in a different conversation than we do non-winners. So I'm interested in having this conversation with the both of you because I feel like we have touched upon this several times on this show. And Brad, I'll start with you because I know you had a love-hate relationship with ring culture, but do you agree with LeBron's stance that we put too much emphasis on it, or is it easier for him to say it as someone who has several?
It's a lot easier for him to say it. I do agree with him. I've always agreed with him. I think ring culture is... And Chris can speak to this because, you know, he's been the coach here. He knows that to win a championship in a team sport, a lot of circumstances have to come together.
Speaking of that, real quick, these are all the teams that LeBron has won titles with. Obviously, 2 with the Miami Heat, 1 with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and his most recent with the Los Angeles Lakers in the bubble.
Yeah, a lot of, again, LeBron obviously had a big part in that, but you can't judge an individual on a team achievement. Guys play big parts in it, but a lot of stuff has to come together. And if it didn't all come together for Charles Barkley, listen, he had to play against Michael Jordan. It's the same thing as saying James Harden isn't a winner because he had to go against the Warriors for all these years.
Okay.
So these guys, Chris knows as a coach, when you put a team together, it's timing, it's injuries, it's all this stuff. And to say that if you didn't win a championship, that you weren't the player. If you want to talk like that, go talk about tennis, go talk about golf, where you're in total control of your destiny. If you're in a team sport, to hold it against you that you didn't win a championship when you were a championship player, it's just the circumstances around you didn't come together, is idiotic. Now, what I'll say is LeBron's a hypocrite. Because if it didn't matter to him, he wouldn't have gone and chased the rings. So I don't think you have to dig very far. I can only speak for myself here, but I think if everyone's honest with themselves, you don't have to dig very far for all of us to become hypocrites. We all say things and act differently. That's human beings. So I'm not holding this against LeBron. I've contradicted myself 2 seconds after I said one thing. I do it on this show all the time. It's how it goes. But if we're going to be rigid about this, you can't say that, oh man, I have no idea why people even care about rings, but you led the whole ring charge that has changed the NBA. So that's hypocritical, but he's right now. Whatever motivating him to say what he's saying right now, he's right. You can't hold individuals to a team standard.
Chris, I do agree with that part. I think it's a double-edged sword in this conversation, right? Because I do agree that an individual's achievement, success, or success in their sport, specifically basketball, can't come down to just rings. There has to be so many other factors that you consider when you're talking about someone's overall greatness, right? But I do think the determining factor when that greatness is very similar across a threshold of players does always come back to the rings. Why? Because winning puts you in a different category than people who have never won. It does not mean, in my opinion, I don't think it makes one player greater than the other, but it does make one career greater than the other, and I feel like that is fair to say. It's a competitive sport. Winning does matter in basketball.
Brad, the first thing, if I ever get in trouble, I'm hiring you as my attorney. The way you just answered right now was unbelievable. Here, I got two things. Two things can be true at the same time, okay? And when you guys say, and this is the only reason why we're having this conversation is because LeBron and Jordan has nothing to do with Kobe, Will Chamberlain, Bill Russell. It's LeBron and Kobe because the guys are out there that love Jordan. Talk about 6 rings in a row, his shoe, the way it sells, the lore. Kids wear his stuff right now. Never saw him play. It's the Jordan cloud. I'll say this. I take issue when people say LeBron chased a ring. LeBron was in Cleveland. No one would come to Cleveland. The original Big Three was in Boston. People got to understand
Correct.
that. That was the original Big Three to beat. So LeBron says, if I want to win and I can't get anybody to come here, I have no choice but to leave.
There's nothing wrong with that, though.
Do me a favor. Look at Miami's record the 4 years before LeBron got there. D-Wade was on the decline. The Heat were on the decline. I also want you to look at the Cleveland Cavaliers record before LeBron left Miami and went to Cleveland. Chase it. Look at the Los Angeles Lakers record before he went to Los Angeles.
But Chris, I think that saying, I don't like when people use the word chase either,
chasing.
but I do think that there's nothing wrong with, and this is to Brad's point, if ring culture did not matter, then putting yourself in a favorable situation to win a ring would not be a conversation. Kevin Durant would have never went to the Golden State Warriors. LeBron would have never left Cleveland to go to Miami. Winning does matter.
That's right.
Winning does put
It's not to say
different category.
It's not to say he didn't change those teams and he wasn't the biggest reason they won.
Winning does matter, and it does put you in a different category tier of players in the NBA.
But put it like this. Go ahead.
Kevin Durant did was far different than what LeBron did.
How is it?
Well, no, it was. It was.
Yes,
It's not even close.
It's true. It's true.
The optics were very different.
No, but he went to a team that had already won.
I mean, but again, I'm just looking at it from a very simplistic standpoint of putting yourself in a favorable situation to win. If ring culture did not matter, nobody would ever leave the teams that they were drafted to.
It matters because there's a lot of idiots. It matters. It matters to perception. It matters when the way that people like us get on and talk about this. LeBron and Kevin Durant want to be talked about as the winners, but it shouldn't be. It should not be. Don't come at me with Kyle Lowry is a better point guard than Allen Iverson. The only reason that Kyle Lowry has a championship is because KD blew his Achilles.
Okay, I agree.
So
with
it's
that.
circumstantial. Do not have this conversation about if you're going to be so rigid that you're just going to look at it's lazy. You don't know the game. You don't know how it happened. You're just looking at this guy has a ring and this guy doesn't. It's an easy talking point. It's low hanging fruit.
I agree.
That's not to say that the players don't hear what people are saying.
I agree.
And go chase it.
Chris, I want you to finish your point there. What was
But
it?
listen, you got people like Derek Fisher thinking that he's a better all-time Laker than LeBron James.
What?
Because he's got more rings?
I saw the comment.
You get out of here.
Because of the rings. Robert Horry has, 7 rings?
Come on, get out of here.
Right now, Barry Bonds is one of the greatest baseball players ever played. Never run a ring. We can talk about whatever. There's guys out there that are just great at what they do. They get drafted to the wrong place. They can't build around them. So then, because of, again, today's world of social media and 24 hours news cycle, they want to be a champion because at the end of the day, why are they doing it if they don't want to be a champion?
Yeah.
We have to change the lens of the way we look at sports. Sports is different now. It's not the same in the 70s. It's not the same in the 80s. It matters to win a ring. But the other side to that, like you say, it's a double-edged sword when LeBron is like, guys, I played against, and here's my only argument for LeBron. I love Michael Jordan, greatest player. You can talk whatever you want. But LeBron played during 2 dynasties, the Spurs and the Warriors.
That's right.
If it wasn't for that, he'd have 8 rings.
That's right. That's absolutely right. That is circumstantial. It is absolutely circumstantial.
But I hear both these points, and I'm not arguing them. And I think that when we talk about individual players and where they rank in the all-time greatness of the NBA, I do think that bringing in ring culture is unfair because it is a team accolade.
No
but
question.
We also can't ignore the fact that guys are not in the NBA just to play basketball and get paid. They want to win. It does matter to them.
You should pursue
winning does matter in the NBA, and it does put you, whether you want to agree with it or doesn't, it does put you in a different conversation. Tom Brady is the GOAT because he has won as many times as he has. He's not in the same conversation as a Jalen Hurts, and it comes down to how many times you have won.
It does, but if you want to make it a thoughtful conversation, though, you have to look at the context of each ring.
You have to look at the overall.
You can't look at
I agree.
You can't look at Kawhi's ring in Toronto and say that it's the same ring as Steph's in 2015.
Absolutely, I agree with that completely.
There's all kinds of circumstances that lead to it. Okay, and so you have to, if you're going to have.
These are some of the notable players, by the way, who have never won a ring. My guy Patrick Ewing is on there.
So would Reggie Miller be a different player, perception-wise, if he just, I don't know, went and joined Patrick Ewing and not put the Knicks over the top and they end winning? Now you got two guys that don't have a ring. Now are they suddenly both different players because they joined up?
But I do,
it's circumstantial.
I don't think they're different players. They're still all-time greats, but I do think we then put them in a different category with other winners because they have a ring.
Okay, I'll say this. Don't include me in the we. Because if we're saying we, like, I think the we are the people that can't have smart conversations.
No.
And there are a lot of those people. But I'm not one of them. There's no chance you're ever getting me to say Allen Iverson isn't better than somebody. Come up with whoever that has two rings. No chance.
I agree with that completely. What I'm saying is that when you look at somebody who is an all-time great and has no ring, and then you look at somebody who's an all-time great and has a ring, you do put the one with the ring slightly above without, because winning is the extra level. If you're talking about Charles Barkley,
if they're completely even and all the circumstances are the same, then fine, it can be the tiebreaker. But that's almost never the case.
Chris, I want to give you last word here. What was your?
Listen, I'll just say this. You know, it's very subjective. And if you're telling me Karl Malone is not one of the greatest players I ever played because he didn't win a ring,
I'm not saying that.
No, I'm just saying in general.
Okay.
Like it's unfortunate. It's luck. How about this? Let me just make this last point. I was watching the Orlando Magic special with Penny Hardaway when they played the Rockets. Michael Jordan leaves the NBA and goes to play baseball. Had he not done that, Hakeem Olajuwon probably wouldn't win.
Circumstances.
I agree with it completely. I agree with it completely. I'm simply saying, though, that we cannot ignore the importance of winning when we talk about, if that was the case, then nobody would ever care if they won a championship.
No,
LeBron wouldn't have gone to multiple teams to better his chances. Kevin Durant wouldn't still be Hold on, Kevin Durant still wouldn't be searching for his ring post the Golden State. Winning does matter to these guys.
Of course it matters to them. You should pursue it, but it should not be the end all be all. It should be a footnote.
No, it shouldn't. But it does put you. I think in a lot of people's minds, it does put them in a different brotherhood when you talk about the NBA. Even the players, it puts you in a different brotherhood when you are a world champion. Whether we agree with it or not, it does. It matters.
No, I'll agree with it. It does. It shouldn't.
In today's culture. It does.
It shouldn't.
Listen, go ahead, Chris.
In a team sport, it is very difficult to have this conversation because, again, we're talking about, it comes down to Jordan and LeBron. It's not about anybody else. Everybody understand that? I love Magic Johnson, but Magic Johnson played with Kareem.
Exactly.
If he played with somebody else, he may not be Magic Johnson.
That's exactly right.
That's all I'm saying.
That's exactly right. Draymond Green's going to go to the Hall of Fame on rings. And he played with Steph Curry.
We will finish this conversation another show, another day, because when we come back, we got to wrap up. But I'm sure we'll finish it during the break. Don't move. Look, an extremely feisty show today. I told you it's always trouble when the big three get together. We don't have any rings, but we have a lot of opinions, and we will be sharing them with the remainder of Triple Threat. We're not done yet, although the season's winding down. The shows aren't. Free agency's around the corner. The draft is around the corner. You're not going to want to miss it. So make sure you scan this QR code and watch full episodes.